Imagine waking up in the middle of summer, sweat clinging to your skin because the air conditioner suddenly shut off. The house is dead silent except for the frantic beeping of appliances losing power. You shuffle over to the light switch, flick it up and down, and nothing happens. Then you glance outside, and while your house sits in darkness, you notice your neighbor's home still glowing with electricity. That's when the realization hits. This wasn't a power outage. Someone intentionally cut your electricity. And the people responsible? They had no idea that the one person they decided to mess with just happened to own the solar company quietly feeding power into every single home in the neighborhood, including theirs. Now, if you've ever wanted to witness karma slam down like a hammer of justice, buckle in, because this story is about to show you what happens when arrogance collides head-on with preparation. And trust me, the ending is something you don't want to miss. Before we dive in, if you've ever dreamed of serving sweet justice to someone who underestimated you, make sure to hit that like button, subscribe, and get comfortable, because this revenge story is about to get good. So here's how it all started. I live in a fairly quiet neighborhood, the kind of place where most people keep to themselves, mow their lawns on Saturdays, and wave politely at each other while putting the trash out. For years, I'd been building up a small solar business, helping homeowners install panels, batteries, and backup systems. What started as a passion project in my garage grew into a fully licensed company with multiple employees and contracts across town. But here's the kicker. I kept things modest on the surface. My house didn't scream wealthy solar entrepreneur. It was comfortable but unassuming. To most neighbors, I probably looked like just another guy in his mid-30s who liked to tinker with tech. Now, across the street lived a man named Carl. If you've ever met someone who thinks they run the whole block, you already know his type. Loud, obnoxious, always boasting about how much he made in real estate investments. His wife was no better, constantly gossiping, constantly looking down her nose at others. They weren't just rude. They made it their mission to dominate the homeowners association. And yes, this neighborhood had an HOA, one of those notorious ones where petty rules about lawn height and mailbox color somehow became more important than actual community. From the moment I moved in, Carl decided I was beneath him. Maybe it was because I wasn't flashy with my money. Maybe it was because I didn't bow to his constant bragging. Whatever the reason, he had it out for me. He'd file little complaints. My hedges were too uneven. My car wasn't HOA approved because it was a work truck, even though I parked it neatly. He'd smirk while handing me violation slips as if he got a thrill from reminding me that, in his mind, I was at the bottom of the food chain. But the worst offense came during a summer heat wave. It was one of those brutal weeks where the temperature refused to dip below 95 degrees, even at night. Everyone had their AC blasting, and the grid was struggling. My house, however, had no such issues. Thanks to my solar array and batteries, I could run my home efficiently without stressing the grid. Carl noticed. He noticed because while his lights flickered and his AC sputtered, mine ran steady. Instead of being impressed or curious, he grew resentful. One evening, I came home to find a bright orange HOA notice taped to my door. Apparently, my solar panels were unauthorized modifications that didn't comply with the neighborhood aesthetic. This was absurd. I'd already secured city permits, and the HOA had no legal authority to override state renewable energy laws. But Carl, being the HOA president, decided to flex. When I confronted him, he smirked and said, "This neighborhood doesn't need your ugly panels dragging down property values. If you want electricity, you can get it like the rest of us. From the grid." His words hit harder than I expected. Not because I doubted my legal standing, but because of the sheer arrogance dripping from his tone. He wasn't trying to protect the neighborhood. He was trying to humiliate me. And then, things escalated. A week later, I came home to find my power completely shut off. Not citywide, just mine. My neighbors' houses glowed, humming with cool air and televisions, while my house sat silent and sweltering. I called the utility company in a panic, and after some digging, they revealed something shocking. Someone had reported unauthorized equipment connected to my home and demanded immediate disconnection for safety concerns. Guess who signed the complaint? Carl. I remember standing in my dark kitchen, staring at the useless light switch, my blood boiling. Sweat trickled down my back. My food was already starting to spoil in the fridge. And the worst part? Carl stood across the street, beer in hand, watching me with a smug grin. That was the breaking point. Up until that moment, I'd tried to take the high road. I'd tried to shrug off his pettiness. but cutting my electricity in the middle of a heat wave? Endangering me? Potentially costing me thousands in spoiled equipment and food? That wasn't just annoying, that was dangerous. And he had no idea that the very system keeping his precious mansion cool during brownouts came directly from the company I owned. See? What Carl didn't know was that several months earlier, our HOA had signed a community-wide contract with a solar provider. Guess who that provider was? My company. In other words, Carl's electricity, his AC, his pool pump, even the lights in his chandelier, was all running on power routed through my infrastructure. Without me, his perfect lifestyle would crumble, and that's when the idea of revenge solidified. I didn't act immediately. No, I planned, carefully, patiently. I gathered every piece of documentation, the permits for my panels, the state laws protecting my right to renewable energy, and most importantly, the signed HOA contract with my company's name all over it. I made sure my lawyers were briefed, my employees ready, and my systems primed. Then came the day of reckoning. Carl called another HOA meeting, smug as ever, intending to officially ban solar panels in the neighborhood. He stood at the podium, puffed up like a rooster, announcing, "We won't let some cheap gimmick lower our property values. We're cutting this nonsense at the root." His wife nodded dramatically from the front row, as if she were some sort of queen presiding over peasants. I let him finish his little performance. Then, when it was my turn to speak, I walked up calmly, carrying a folder thick with documents. I looked him straight in the eye and said, "Carl, I think you should sit down. This concerns you more than anyone." The room went quiet. I laid out everything, how my panels were fully legal, how his complaint had been baseless, and how, by filing false safety claims, he'd committed a serious offense that could land him in legal trouble. Then I pulled out the crown jewel, the HOA's own contract with my company. "You see," I explained, "while you've been trying to destroy me, I've been powering your home. Without my company, every house in this neighborhood, including yours, would be sitting in the dark. In fact, as of tonight, I've decided to suspend service until this harassment stops." I'll never forget the look on his face. His smug grin collapsed into panic, his cheeks flushed red, and he started sputtering about breach of contract and illegal threats. But my lawyers, seated quietly in the back, shook their heads with calm smiles. I had every legal right. That night, as promised, I cut the switch. One by one, the neighborhood lights went out. AC units powered down. Pools stopped circulating. And Carl's mansion, the one he lorded over everyone, went blacker than the sky above. Meanwhile, my house? Bright as ever. My fridge hummed, my AC purred, my lights glowed warmly while the rest of the street sweltered in darkness. Neighbors peeked out, confused and panicked, some even knocking on my door for answers. That's when I told them the truth. Their power came from me, and Carl had jeopardized it all out of pure spite. It didn't take long for the neighborhood to turn on him. Angry residents demanded his resignation from the HOA. Lawsuits loomed over his fraudulent complaint. His wife's gossiping turned into desperate apologies. Within weeks, they sold their house and slunk away, tails between their legs. As for me, business boomed. Word spread fast about the guy who stood up to an arrogant bully with nothing but facts, patience, and a whole lot of solar panels. And every time I flip a switch in my still glowing home, I can't help but smile at the memory of Carl standing in the dark, realizing he'd tried to pull power from the very man he'd underestimated. So, what did I learn? That sometimes the sweetest revenge isn't just about payback, it's about proving that preparation and quiet strength will always outshine arrogance. If this story gave you chills, smash that like button and tell me in the comments, what's the most satisfying revenge you've ever seen? And of course, subscribe for more stories like this one, because trust me, there are plenty more where this came from.